So we are just hours away to Oscar nominations morning. What do I think is getting in? Hi, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender, and here is my final predictions video for the 97th Academy Award nominations. They are on Thursday morning, bright and early. I will be here at 5:30 a.m. Pacific Coast time to give you my reactions. And before we get there, let me give you my very final Oscar predictions in the top 8 categories. Like in those 8 categories, what do I think is getting in? These are my final predictions, I promise. Let's start with Best Adapted Screenplay. In the order of likelihood of movies that are like the most likely to get these nominations, we of course start with Conclave. I do think that's probably going to win the Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay. I have to see it lose somewhere, right? Like, it won Best Screenplay at the Globes, and they only have the one category there. They don't have original and adapted. It was just screenplay, and it won, like, over Anora. So I think Conclave is well out in front here. I can't imagine something overtaking it. It's clearly getting nominated, of course. Next is A Complete Unknown. I think that gets into adapted screenplay. That movie has really been building in strength the last few weeks. You know, in November, December, I was like, maybe it'll just be a play for Timothée Chalamet and Edward Norton, but it won't get into picture, it won't get into screenplay and things. But, you know, I saw the film, I very much enjoyed it. Awards voters are really going for it, as was proven with SAG. So, yeah, an adapted screenplay, which isn't the most, like, competitive category, I think A Complete Unknown gets in there. I don't see it overtaking Conclave, like, to win. That would be surprising. But, you know, of course, we'll talk about it in the weeks to come. Next is Emilia Perez. Emilia Perez. I can't do it, guys. You keep saying I'm saying it wrong. Emilia Perez, right? Okay. Like, I'll get there, I promise. But yeah, for the longest time, I didn't think that movie would be nominated in screenplay because it's a musical and things. I was like, I don't know. Does that get into adapted screenplay? But let's face it, this thing has been dominating since the Globes. It is doing so freaking well. I've been waiting for it to like underperform somewhere. I thought, well, maybe at SAG, maybe at BAFTA, it won't do as well. Like this movie, I mean, it's doing so well that for you to not predict it to get into adapted screenplay at the Oscars, like, I think that's happening. I think it's getting in there. I think it's getting into picture and director and actress and supporting actress, and it's getting into adapted screenplay. I do have it there. What do I have in slot number 4? It is Sing Sing. I think Sing Sing, even if it were to miss Best Picture, I think it gets into adapted screenplay. I think it at least gets into Best Actor and adapted screenplay. I think it's going to do better than that. I mean, at this point, I think some people might be leaving Sing Sing off their adapted screenplay predictions, but I'm not going to do that. I think it gets in. The big question mark is what takes the 5th place slots. I mean, I was toying with I'm Still Here. Like, can I'm Still Here surprise an adapted screenplay? Like, I still think Fernanda Torres is very likely getting into Best Actress. Could the movie also get into screenplay? You know, I've seen it like in 8th or 9th place, and I don't know. I just like, I came close to predicting it, but I'm like, I'm not quite there yet. If it surprises, that will be awesome. And there's Dune Part 2. Dune Part 2, in a way, seems like a pretty safe prediction, but like it hasn't gotten into adapted screenplay very much the last few weeks. So even though the first Dune got in here, I don't know. I think it can still get into picture, but I think Dune Part 2 is going to miss adapted screenplay. I am going with Nickel Boys. I do think at this point it's unlikely for Nickel Boys to get into any other top category outside of picture, maybe. We'll talk about picture. Like, it's possible it could get that 10th place slots. But I don't know. I think we give Nickel Boys something in the big, you know, the top categories, and adapted screenplay makes the most sense. It got in at BAFTA, and so, I don't know. I think we give Nickel Boys a screenplay nomination. So my very final Oscar predictions for the 5 nominees in Best Adapted Screenplay are Conclave, A Complete Unknown, Amelia Perez, Sing Sing, and Nickel Boys. Alright, next up is Best Original Screenplay. What films are getting in here? I think this one's a little bit easier to predict than Adapted. Like, Adapted could throw us like a huge shocker in there, like something we're not even thinking about maybe. Original Screenplay outside of that 5th place slot, I feel is pretty locked up at this point. Obviously, Anora gets us started. Sean Baker's script to Anora. I think that is going to be the frontrunner to win at the Oscars in this category. There's nothing else, like, really that I think can take it down at the end of the day, even though Anora did lose in screenplay to Conclave at the Globes. Like, that was only one screenplay category. Now Anora is separate from Conclave, and because Anora is no longer likely to necessarily win Best Actress, Best Picture, if we want to give that movie something, it would be an original screenplay. I think that's going to happen. Anora is for sure getting nominated there, along with The Brutalist, even though I don't think The Brutalist is going to be competitive to win in screenplay. I think it's going to show up everywhere. I think it would be really weird if it missed in original screenplay. Even if it's not super competitive, I do feel like that movie gets into original screenplay. You have A Real Pain by Jesse Eisenberg. I mean, I think at this point, it's very likely getting into picture, supporting actor for Kieran Culkin, and original screenplay. Like, that movie has done very well in the screenplay category, like getting nominated everywhere. People really adore that film. It is a really fun watch, A Real Pain. It's so well done, so well written. And I think, like, Jesse Eisenberg, like, especially having an Oscar nomination in lead actor for The Social Network, I think that even helps him here, like, just to get the nomination. It seems pretty sewn up that A Real Pain is getting into original screenplay. And then you have The Substance. The Substance, for the longest time, I was like, is that gonna get any big nominations? I was so, like, trepidatious. I was like, let's not predict it, Brian, because, like, you have had your heart broken so many times the last few years with horror films, like with weird, gross out genre movies. Typically, they don't do very well, at least in the top 8 categories. The Substance is an anomaly. It's going to do very well. I do think it's getting into Best Original Screenplay for Coralie Farja, and I wouldn't even have it in the 5th place slot. I would have it in 4, maybe even 3. So that's really cool. I'm so happy that that film is getting nominated at the Oscars in original screenplay. Do not let me down, Academy. So the question mark is in slot number 5, in original screenplay. What is getting nominated there? For a while, I thought Saturday Night could get in, but that movie has really crashed and burned come award season. So yeah, I don't see that happening. There could be a couple other films that take this slot over the one I'm going to predict. But even if Challengers does not make it in to Best Picture, I think it can get in to original screenplay. I think that is possible. And although this isn't one of the more competent predictions I'm giving in this video, I think it's going to happen. I think Challengers gets in to that 5th place slot in original screenplay. My 3rd favorite movie of the year, like, deserves one big nomination at the Oscars, and original screenplay would make me so frickin' happy. I think it's not like a given, but it's definitely possible. I am going to predict it. So my very final predictions in original screenplay are Anora, The Brutalist, A Real Pain, The Substance, and Challengers. Okay, now we get to the acting categories. We'll start with supporting actor. Now, I made a video with Nick Rourkraut a little over a week ago where we gave our final acting Oscar predictions. But these are the very final ones. We recorded that video after SAG, but before BAFTA. And now that we've had BAFTA, I am making a few last-minute changes, guys. One category is staying the same. Since that video I made with Nick, the other 3 I am making a switch in that final slot. So starting in supporting actor, I am making a change here. Of course, at the top, we have Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain. He is the frontrunner. He might sweep the season. He might win everywhere. We must be prepared for that. I still feel like at BAFTA, someone could upset him. I feel like he might not win there. But I think about last year and like, oh, well, maybe so-and-so will win at BAFTA, like over Robert Downey Jr. or, you know, maybe Emily Blunt will surprise, like over Davine Joy Randolph. You know, I would always like talk about these things and then they almost never happen. Usually we just get sweeps. If there's a performance everyone loves and a movie everyone appreciates and adores, like often that person just sweeps from the Globes to the Oscars. That's what's probably going to happen for Kieran Culkin. He's definitely getting nominated, unless he's nominated at the Oscars in lead actor. Imagine if that happened. Like, imagine if at the Oscars they pulled a Kate Winslet, the reader, and they gave him a lead actor nomination. I don't think that's going to happen, but like, there's like a tiny possibility, maybe. He's probably getting into supporting actor, and he's probably winning. Edward Norton would get my number 2 slot. I think he's very well likely getting nominated. He's gotten in everywhere. A Complete Unknown is very popular. So why would Norton miss the Oscar nomination? That would make no sense to me. He has 3 nominations behind him. You know, he doesn't give my favorite performance of the year in A Complete Unknown. He's fine in that. I don't think it's anything special necessarily, but I think he's in. Yura Borisov would be my number 3 slot. I still feel very good about him, especially after he got in at BAFTA. Like, wow, he got into all 4 of the big precursors. I never would have expected that. I think that's so freaking awesome for my favorite movie of the year. What a great performance. And, you know, an actor we haven't talked about until this season. And I really hope this movie and all these nominations put him on the map. Yura Borisov getting his first Oscar nomination. My number 4 slot goes to Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, even though he missed at SAG. I'm still very confident, I would say, predicting him to get in at the Oscars. He got in everywhere else. Globes, Critics' Choice, BAFTA. Like, just missing at SAG. That's not like the end of the line necessarily. He can still easily get the Oscar nomination. And because The Brutalist is one of the most important films of the year, just like one of the great movies of 2024, he's so good in that. That would feel really wrong for him to miss at the Oscars. That would make me very upset. So I am hoping, Academy, you do not snub Guy Pearce for The Brutalist. Let's make sure that nomination happens in a few hours. Please. Now, the number 5 slot. In my video with Nick, my final prediction was Denzel Washington for Gladiator 2. And what's interesting is that I didn't even expect him to get in at BAFTA. BAFTA has never nominated Washington, but there's been such a lackluster reception for Gladiator 2. In all of the categories, forget supporting actor, just all over the place. It's like it's almost been forgotten about. And I mean, it's probably going to get maybe 2 or 3 technical nominations at the Oscars, but I don't know. Does Denzel Washington have enough strength to get that Oscar nomination for supporting actor? I was feeling it 9-10 days ago. I'm not really feeling it right now as we get super close to Oscar nominations morning. You know, I always went back to Roman J. Israel Esquire. I'm like, well, he got in for that. But I looked it up. He did get a SAG nomination in lead actor for that movie. And Washington did not get a SAG nomination in supporting actor for Gladiator 2. So I'm like, it's still very well possible he just gets the Oscar nomination. And I'm overthinking this, but I have decided for these very final predictions, I am taking Denzel Washington out and I am swapping in Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. He did get in at BAFTA. He got in at SAG. It's a great performance. Like, if enough people, enough Academy members are watching The Apprentice, Jeremy Strong is fantastic in that movie. So because he got in at SAG and BAFTA, I don't know. I'm just like, are we really not going to nominate him at the Oscars? Like, Denzel Washington has faded big time in supporting actor. And so, yeah, I have decided to switch over to Jeremy Strong. So my very final Oscar predictions in Best Supporting Actor are Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain, Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown, Yura Borisov, Anora, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong, The Apprentice. Okay, supporting actress. Once again, I have 4 of the women I was predicting a few days ago, but I am swapping someone out at the end here. At the top, of course, we have Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. I'll get it at some point. I still think she's the front runner, even though we still have only had the Globes. I mean, I'm going to need to see Ariana Grande win, somewhere along the way. But I still think at the top we have Saldana and we have Ariana Grande for Wicked. I'm hoping there is some suspense by the time we get to Oscars night on March 2nd. Like, I kind of want Grande to win something big, like SAG, so we're all kind of scratching our heads, like, who is going to take it at the Oscars? That would be really exciting, actually. I enjoy when we get to Oscars night and we don't really know what's going to happen in at least, I would say, 2 of the acting categories, if not more. So we'll see if Saldana can sweep. I mean, she might. She and Culkin might just sweep their categories, but I would love for there to be kind of a battle there, towards the end. Third place is Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, even though I don't think she's in the movie enough. That doesn't seem to put off voters because she's gotten in everywhere she needed to outside of SAG. She missed SAG, but again, I feel like, you can miss one place throughout the season, like I just talked about with Guy Pearce and The Brutalist. Like, you can miss at SAG, still get the Oscar nomination. If you get in at the Globes and Critics' Choice and BAFTA, that's usually enough. If someone misses a few places but only gets in at SAG, that doesn't necessarily mean they can, they're going to get the Oscar nomination. So because Conclave has been so popular this season, and because supporting actress isn't as crazy competitive as it sometimes is, because she's a veteran, she's never been nominated, she's got that one amazing scene in Conclave, I think that's enough. I think Rossellini is getting in. Weirdly, those are the only 3 I think most of us feel pretty confident about. You get to slots 4 and 5, and it's a bit of a free-for-all. Now we have nominations at Globes and Critics' Choice and SAG and BAFTA to go off of. Even though she missed at Critics' Choice and SAG, and that does give me a little bit of pause. I'm a little nervous. I'm like, at the end of the day, Felicity Jones has to get in for The Brutalist, right? There was a report that came out very recently of some voters are saying they're not finishing The Brutalist. It's too long. She's in the second half. So honestly, if she misses at the Oscars, if she is not nominated, I'm going to blame it on Academy members not finishing their screeners of The Brutalist. You have to watch the whole movie, people. Come on. She's so great. She's so brilliant, especially at the very end. That's not going to feel right to me if Felicity Jones misses. She deserves to be in that category at the Oscars. I'm still predicting her. I'm not overly confident, but boy, that's going to suck big time if Felicity Jones misses. Now in slot number 5, I was originally predicting Monica Barbaro for A Complete Unknown. In my video with Nick, I had her in based off her SAG nomination and the growing strength of that movie. I thought she could do it, but then she didn't get a BAFTA nomination, she's not in the Globes or Critics' Choice, and so this would only be based off of that SAG nomination. And that, it's still possible, it still could be a surprise, but, I kind of hate to do this. I'm going to be mad if I switch it out here and then it does turn out to be Barbaro, It'll be when you're in high school and, you take the math test and you look at it, and you're feeling good, but then you go through it and you take an extra 10 minutes and then you switch 3 or 4 answers, and then you get the test back the next day, and the 3 you switched were right the first time. Like, that happened to me all the time when I was young. A student, like, you know, in anything outside of English, which was my best subject, like in math and science and stuff, it was always my first instinct that was right, but then I would overthink it and change a few things. You know, the Scantron would come back and it was right the first time. So, you know, part of me, like let's just stick with what I predicted with Nick. It's probably going to be Denzel Washington. Maybe Monica Barbaro will show up, and I'll just, Brian, you were right the first time, but I don't know, guys. I think it's happening. Jamie Lee Curtis for The Last Showgirl, I think is gonna get in. I think getting into SAG and BAFTA, you know, and I have underestimated her before. You know, all throughout that season for Everything Everywhere All at Once, I was like, she's not going to have this happen. She's not going to win this. She's not going to win that. Like, there's something to Jamie Lee Curtis, man. Awards voters love her right now. She won the Emmy for The Bear, and she's very good in The Last Showgirl. It's a very wild, original performance. Even if Pamela Anderson cannot secure that lead actress Oscar nomination, I think Curtis is going to slip in there. I think after her nomination at BAFTA, I'm just like, Brian, I think it's happening. I think she's going to make it. So yeah, right before Oscar nominations morning, I am going to predict that Jamie Lee Curtis gets in for The Last Showgirl. So my very final Oscar predictions in Best Supporting Actress are Zoe Saldana, Emilia Perez, Ariana Grande, Wicked, Isabella Rossellini, Conclave, Felicity Jones, The Brutalist, and Jamie Lee Curtis, The Last Showgirl. Okay, Best Actor. I'm also making a swap. This is the one I'm really like this is the closest I am. Part of me wants to just keep it the same as my video with Nick, but then I'm like, BAFTA really, you know, got my mind going here, guys. BAFTA made me go, am I being too confident about that 5th place slot? We'll get to it. Obviously, the top 4 have been the same since like September, October. Even before Globe's nominations, most of us felt pretty confident about 4 of those 5 slots. You have Adrian Brody, The Brutalist. I do think he's the front runner right now. You have Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown. I still think Chalamet could win at SAG. And in Best Actor on Oscars night, it is a true nail-biter. Is it going to be Brody? Is it going to be Chalamet? I hope that happens. That would be really exciting. But yeah, those 2 are in for sure. You have Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. I would love to see him win somewhere. Someone said the other day, like, what about Ralph Fiennes winning Best Actor at BAFTA? Could that happen? And I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, totally. Like, that could absolutely happen. We could maybe even have a 3-way race at the Oscars. Like, 3 different people win a big lead actor prize along the way. And so on Oscars night, we don't know what to do with ourselves. That would be awesome. I do think Fiennes could win at BAFTA and make for a really exciting season in Best Actor. He's absolutely getting in here. And then Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. Even if Sing Sing, for whatever reason, missed Best Picture, missed Best Adapted Screenplay, I think Coleman Domingo still gets in. He has shown up everywhere this season. He is so beloved. He gives such a great performance in that. He was just nominated at the Oscars for Rustin, a film that got in nowhere else but Best Actor. So yeah, I think Coleman Domingo is like very well set. He is getting nominated. Who gets the 5th place slot? In my video with Nick, I was confident in predicting Daniel Craig for Queer. I'm like, he got in at the Globes, at Critics' Choice, and at SAG. Nobody predicted him to get in at SAG. But when I recorded that video, I just assumed he would be nominated at BAFTA, but he wasn't. And so now I'm like, I still think he is the safe prediction in a way, but because there's 6 slots at BAFTA, not 5, and Craig couldn't crack it, now I'm not so sure. You know, Queer has not done well in any other category, whereas The Apprentice has a good shot of getting into supporting actor for Jeremy Strong. So as much as I think Daniel Craig still has a pretty good chance, as much as Hugh Grant for Heretic would be a lovely surprise, I have decided to make a change yet again. I am taking out Daniel Craig for Queer. I'm probably going to regret this. On Thursday, it's probably going to be Craig, but I am taking him out, and I am swapping in Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. I feel like that could happen. I think he's had a really interesting season, double nominated at the Globes. He wins the Globe for A Different Man. He misses at Critics' Choice and SAG, but he gets the BAFTA nomination for Best Actor. That was a huge get. And I think a lot of awards voters are coming to appreciate the work of Sebastian Stan, like what he's done this past year, especially with Academy members having a few extra days to vote and things and catch up on some movies. I think Stan has a better shot at this moment of getting into actor at the Oscars than Craig. That's just what I'm feeling right now. I might be overthinking it. It might probably be Craig, and it's like, Brian, you should have just left it. But you know what? I'm doing it. I'm doing it here. I'm going to go with Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. And that would be a great, well-deserved nomination. He's very good in that movie. So my very final Oscar predictions for Best Actor are Adrian Brody, The Brutalist, Timothée Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, Ralph Fiennes, Conclave, Coleman Domingo, Sing Sing, and Sebastian Stan, The Apprentice. And now, Best Actress, spoiler alert, I am not changing a thing. I thought about it. I thought about like swapping in Marianne Jean-Baptiste. Her getting in a BAFTA was a huge get. So now she has a Critics' Choice nomination and a BAFTA nomination. She won a ton of critics' prizes. So, I'm like, are we really not going to nominate Marianne Jean-Baptiste at the Oscars for Hard Truths? Part of me is like, Brian, she's gonna make it. Like, I don't know how. I don't know who she takes out necessarily, but she's gonna make it happen. Like, Marianne Jean-Baptiste is getting an Oscar nomination for Best Actress, but I don't know who we remove from the category to get her in. I have, of course, Mikey Madison for Honora. She is set, as is Demi Moore for The Substance, which continues to make my heart happy that she is absolutely getting her first Oscar nomination. And for a movie like that, it's just fantastic. I'm so excited to see Demi Moore get into the Oscars for The Substance and be, I guess, the frontrunner to win at this point. We'll see what happens at Critics' Choice and BAFTA and SAG. We'll see if she can sweep. I'm hoping for a surprise somewhere along the way. Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez. I thought she could maybe miss somewhere, like at SAG or BAFTA or something, but she has gotten in everywhere she needs to. So to not predict her at this point, especially with Emilia Perez doing as well as it is, like just overperforming everywhere, to not predict Gascon would be pretty silly at this point. So I do have her in. As I've been saying for weeks, I think of the 4 women who are most likely to get Oscar nominations for Best Actress, the one who's most vulnerable is Cynthia Erivo for Wicked. I have thought, could Erivo miss? She is replaced by Marianne Jean-Baptiste for Hard Truths or something. It's possible, but Wicked did so freaking well at SAG. Got in more places than I even expected it to. It did well at BAFTA. It's done really, really well all throughout awards season. And so I'm like, I just don't see it here that Cynthia Erivo would miss for Marianne Jean-Baptiste to get in instead. I just think so many awards voters have lifted up, given their votes to that movie. They love Wicked, as they should. It's a great film. So Cynthia Erivo, especially with that incredible final few minutes of the movie, I think she's in. I'm predicting Cynthia Erivo still, and in my 5th place slot, even though she missed at Critics' Choice and SAG and BAFTA. Wasn't even on the BAFTA long list, and, this might be kind of silly. I might on Oscar nominations morning be like, Brian, come on. It was always going to be Marianne Jean-Baptiste. You are a stupid person, Brian. You are stupid. I might say that, that might happen. But I don't know, guys. I still think, based on that Golden Globe win for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Drama, and with I'm Still Here growing in strength a little bit, I would say, the last few weeks, I think her win at the Globes came at just the right time. And with allowing Academy members a few more days to catch up on some movies, to watch I'm Still Here, and consider her, I still think Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here takes that 5th place slot at the Oscars in Best Actress. I am not swapping her out. I am not changing that one. I still feel pretty confident Fernanda Torres is going to pull it off. So my very final Oscar predictions for Best Actress are Mikey Madison, Anora, Demi Moore, The Substance, Carla Sofia Gascon, Emilia Perez, Cynthia Erivo, Wicked, and Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here. Best Director, I think 4 of those 5 slots feel pretty sewn up. I think 4 of them are they're absolutely happening. And there's still some suspense, who is getting the 5th place slot? There's 3 or 4 people who could easily, I think, get in there. We'll see what Academy members decide to do in Best Director. I think at the top, of course, you have Brady Corbet for The Brutalist. He won at the Globes. He's going to be the front runner. I don't see anyone at this point overtaking him. I do think no matter what happens in picture and the acting categories, Brady Corbet is very likely winning Best Director. You have Sean Baker for Anora. I would be surprised if he wins anywhere for Director, especially since he's probably going to win in a few places in original screenplay. I don't see him taking Director, but he's going to be nominated. You have to nominate Sean Baker in Director for Anora. I would have in 3rd place for Director Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez. I think he's safely in my early predictions video for Director. He was my 5th place slot. He was my, I don't know, but I think it's going to be Audiard. I feel more confident about him now. I think he's going to be safely in. I would have him in 3rd place. In 4th place, I would have Edward Berger for Conclave. He could maybe miss. It's not outside the realm of possibility. We take out Berger and we put in 2 more exciting choices, I would say. But as of right now, he made it in at DGA. Conclave is very popular. I think he's going to make it. I do think he gets the Oscar nomination. So the question is, who gets into that 5th place slots? It could easily be James Mangold for A Complete Unknown. He got in at DGA. It may very well go to Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2. He got in at BAFTA, but I don't know. Dune Part 2 has not done as well this award season as I thought it might. And so even though he was in my early predictions video, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. It could be Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys, a really, really cool director nomination for him. I wouldn't say he's out of it. But I'm going to take a big swing here. At the end of the day, it might not happen, but I think it might. I think it might, and I will be so frickin' excited for her. Coralie Farja for The Substance, I think, is going to get that 5th place slot. I think it's happening. I think there is so much love for The Substance, even if it were to miss in supporting actress for Margaret Qualley. I'm not predicting her right now. She missed at SAG and BAFTA, and so I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous about that. Coralie Farja made it into director at BAFTA, and so I don't know. I mean, it could be Villeneuve, might be overthinking this. Maybe it will just be Mangold for A Complete Unknown, but I think the directing branch often gives us a really cool nomination, and I think they're going to surprise us with Farja. I think it's going to happen. I'm not super confident about it, but come on, Academy, come on. Coralie Farja does one of the best directing jobs of anybody in 2024. Her work on The Substance is spectacular. Let's give her the director nomination. I sure hope it happens. I am predicting it. So my very final Oscar predictions for Best Director are Brady Corbet, The Brutalist, Sean Baker, Anora, Jacques Audiard, Emilia Perez, Edward Berger, Conclave, and Coralie Farja, The Substance. And finally, Best Picture. What is getting into those 10 slots in picture? I feel like 9 of the 10 slots are pretty well sewn up. Even though a couple of these movies, maybe haven't done as well as they could have or whatever, I think the 9 are pretty well set. I still believe in A through E. You have Anora, that's getting in for sure. You have The Brutalist. I don't know if that's necessarily the frontrunner to win, but The Brutalist is getting a Best Picture nomination. That's absolutely happening. Conclave, that's for sure getting in. I still think Conclave could maybe win the Oscar for Best Picture. If it pulls a spotlight, everyone goes for Conclave, they give it adapted screenplay and picture. And that's it. That could happen too. Dune Part 2, I still think gets into Best Picture, even if it were to miss in all of the other 7 top categories. It doesn't get into director for Denis Villeneuve. It doesn't show up in adapted screenplay. I still think Dune Part 2, the spectacle of it, it's one of the great blockbusters of the year. In a field of 10, I still think that makes it. And Emilia Perez, of course, will be nominated. Let's face it, all of you out there who hate that movie, you need to prepare yourself. Emilia Perez is going to do very well across the board. It's going to get a lot of Oscar nominations. Prepare yourself. It's definitely getting into picture. And then I would have a complete unknown. Some of us were like, is that going to get into picture? Is it going to do that? Yes, it's absolutely getting in. The strength that movie had at SAG was quite something. And I wouldn't even have it in slot 8 or 9 or 10. I think I would have it in slot 6. That's how strong A Complete Unknown is right now. So that's definitely getting into picture. Next, I would have Wicked, of course. Wicked is getting into Best Picture. That would be a shocker if it missed in a field of 10. I don't think it gets into director. It's probably not getting into adapted screenplay. But it's getting likely 2 acting nominations and a lot in the technical categories probably. And it's getting into picture for sure. Then I would have A Real Pain, even though at this point I only think A Real Pain gets into original screenplay and supporting actor. I still think it gets into picture. I think people really love that movie. It's a good pick for picture. I think that would be really cool. I think that's happening. An even cooler pick for picture, which I wasn't so sure about a few weeks ago, but I'm feeling pretty good about it now, is The Substance. The Substance getting into picture. I mean, if I'm predicting Coralie Farja to get into director, of course, The Substance is going to make it into picture, and it's never going to not amaze me. The Substance getting into picture and director and actress and original screenplay, makeup, maybe sound. The movie might get 5 to 7 Oscar nominations or something, and that is frickin' incredible. I am so excited. I'm really hopeful the Academy does not let me down at this point. And let's say they only nominate it for Best Actress and Makeup, and that's it. It only gets 2, or something. I'll be like, really? Come on, guys, I'm hoping it gets 4 or 5, maybe more nominations, including Best Picture. I am predicting it. So that's 9. What gets the 10th place slots? Could it be Nickel Boys? Maybe. Could it be September 5? September 5 made it in at PGA. So in some ways, the safe prediction for that final slot is September 5, even though it's a movie that hasn't really come up at all in any of the other top categories, at all. It got into picture at Globes, it's in at PGA. So that is probably the smart choice. I would love to predict for that final slot to go to Challengers. I still think there's an outside possibility that Challengers makes it in there. Just kind of a last minute surprise. Challengers gets into picture. I'm really not confident about it. I wouldn't predict it right now. I think that final slot is going to Sing Sing. Even though Sing Sing has hit some brick walls along the way, it's definitely had its hurdles and it's not doing as well as I thought it would. It did better than I thought it would at BAFTA. You know, it got some BAFTA nominations. And I think even if it misses supporting actor for Clarence Macklin at the Oscars, although, you know, he could get in too. I didn't even talk about him before. Clarence Macklin is still a possibility. I'm predicting the movie to get into adapted screenplay, best actor, of course, for Coleman Domingo. And I think Sing Sing is worthy of getting that Best Picture nomination. I think it's happening. So, at the very end here, my very final predictions for those 10 Oscar nominees for Best Picture are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, A Real Pain, Sing Sing, The Substance, and Wicked. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and let me know in the comments below what are your very final Oscar predictions in those top 8 categories, and I will see you next time at the awards contender bright and early on Oscar nominations morning.